Hello and welcome. I am John O'Brien from the Keystone Contractors Association, and today we are presenting the 2026 Building a Strong Workforce Seminar Series. This is part three of four, and it was originally delivered in a hybrid fashion, delivered live at Houck in Harrisburg, and Nikki was there from representing Pro-A. But the first half, we had some technical issues with the audio visual equipment. So we are going to re-record the first part and then let the computer wizards, whatever, do their thing and mesh the two together. I don't know how that works, but we'll figure it out. And then we're going to deliver this on YouTube once again. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, this is part one on stigma of the Building a Strong Workforce Seminar 3. And Nikki Weir from Pro-A is going to deliver the information, and I will go off screen until she is done.
All right. Thank you. My name is Nikki Weir, and I am with Pennsylvania Recovery Organizations Alliance. We are Pro-A. We received a grant from the PCCD, and we are presenting the substance use trainings to trades and unions. So as John said, we're talking about stigma today. One second. Oh, there we go. All right. So we are Pro-A Works project, and we're talking about stigma today and how it impacts us and what we can do to change it. Our executive director is William Stauffer. Patricia Baranowski is our program director for Pro-A Works. And again, I am Nikki Weir, and I am the program coordinator. So who is Pro-A? We are one of the first recovery organizations in the nation. We were founded in 1998, and our mission is to mobilize, educate, and advocate in order to eliminate the stigma and discrimination towards those affected by substance use disorder, to ensure hope, health, and justice for individuals and families and those in recovery. So our learning objectives today over this, you should be able to accurately define the word stigma, identify at least 3 sources of stigma, describe consequences of stigma related to substance and alcohol use disorders, and apply proactive solutions in combating the stigma associated with substance use. So our definition of stigma is a set of stereotypes, prejudices, and discriminatory behaviors that lead people to be devalued or treated as less than. So stigma means judging someone based on assumptions instead of facts. It's when people are treated like they're less than because of the problem they have or something that they're dealing with. Stigma happens when we label people in a way that make them feel ashamed, alone, or treated unfairly. So why does stigma matter specifically in the trades? High pressure, physically demanding. In the trades, we pride ourselves on toughness, on getting the job done. But the same culture can make it hard for people to speak up when they're struggling. Injury rates are higher than the trades in most industries, which leads to getting prescription pain medications. You have irregular schedules and work long hours, having the fear of job loss or being seen as unsafe if they disclose a problem, and limited access to employee assistance programs in smaller environments. So understanding the roots of stigma. Originally, stigma referred to the visible mark branded onto the body. Today, stigma works the same way. It's just as a physical mark without the physical mark. It still labels people and it sets them apart. Being shunned or rejected by others emerges when people feel uneasy or they don't understand or they perceive people different. Stigma shows up when people feel uncomfortable or they don't understand someone. Instead of asking them, they just assume. So types of stigma. Public stigma. This is how other people judge someone with negative attitudes, stereotypes, social distancing. It often leads people to be avoided, talked about, or pushed away. Self-stigma. This is when a person starts to believe the negative things other people say about them. They feel ashamed. They internalize these views, leading to shame and self-worth. Structural stigma. That is the stigma that's built into systems like rules, policies, or other organizations operate. It can show up in healthcare, workplaces, housing, or insurance. These systems can make it harder for people to get treatment, keep a job, or feel supported. So symptoms of stigma. There's emotional stigma that produces strong negative emotions such as shame, embarrassment, and distress. You have loneliness. There's cognitive symptoms. That's internalized. That leads to individuals to adopt negative stereotypes about themselves. Self-blame and reduced self-esteem are consistently reported across studies. The social stigma. That is stigma that contributes to social withdrawal, secrecy, and avoidance of social interactions. It also leads to isolation. Behavioral symptoms. Stigma is a major barrier to treatment seeking. Many delay or avoid care. Mental health impact. Stigma worsens depression and anxiety symptoms. It reduces resilience and coping mechanisms. So the cost of stigma is deeply rooted in society. It is not new. It's been built into our culture for generations. And many people were taught that addiction is a moral failure instead of a medical condition. And those old beliefs still shape how people react today. It isolates individuals and their families. Again, when someone is struggling, stigma pushes them into silence. Some families believe in not talking to people outside of the family about what's going on in the family. It encourages people to deny fatal illness and ignore symptoms. Addiction is a chronic, potentially fatal medical condition, but stigma convinces people to hide. And it also blocks appropriate funding for addiction treatment. Why people don't get help. Here on this chart, it shows 59.5% do not get help because they're not ready to stop using. And until someone is ready to stop, they can't do it for their kids, for their spouse, for their job. They internally have to be ready to stop. No health care coverage and could not afford the cost. That's 45.3% of people. And this was in 2024. It might have a negative effect on a job. That's 41.3%. People are afraid to go away to treatment or get treatment if it's going to affect their job schedule. They feel they need to keep that job so they don't get help. Might cause neighbors or community to have a negative impact. That's 43.2%. People worry about what other people say. Again, 38.9 did not know where to go to treatment, and 32.4 did not find a program that offered the type of treatment that they wanted. How stigma shows up on the job site? Joking. Stigma isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the jokes, the eye rolling, or the way we avoid someone who's struggling. We've all heard comments, he's not right, she's off her game, or the crew just quietly keeps their distance. And there you go. So we're avoiding our coworkers that are struggling. Supervisors ignoring the warning signs, seeing individuals come in late for work, but they just let it go and they just let them get to work. Workers hiding behind injuries or pain to avoid being labeled. Again, taking pain medication or just dealing with the pain and they keep on working. Fear of reporting the substance use because of safety concerns or job. The trade workers often carry certifications, licenses, and reputations that they've worked hard to earn. So the fear of losing all of that keeps people from speaking up, even when they need help. Factors that compound stigma. So the culture. Some people believe that certain cultures are subject to substance use disorder. Some people believe that race has something to do with substance use disorder, like minorities are more prone to have substance use disorder, and that's not true. Stigma or substance use does not discriminate. It doesn't matter who you are. It can hit anybody. And again, same thing with socioeconomic status. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. And then coexisting multiple disorders, having mental health issues and your substance use disorder. Implications of stigma. There's stigma from within, and that is internally. People worry about, again, the golem effect, which is showing a psychological phenomenon in which lower expectations placed on individuals, either by supervisors or the individual themselves, leads to less performance in an individual. And the Mylon effect is you give someone a lot of work, they work harder and they do great and they perform better. So stigma from treatment providers. Some treatment providers feel that if a treatment provider is in recovery, they are better to treat somebody with substance use disorder. And then again, stigma from the outside, worrying what other people think. So the impact of stigma, there's discrimination. People facing stigma might be treated unfairly in workplaces. Avoidance and secrecy, again, hiding things, hiding, when they're drinking, hiding how much they're drinking from their family, from their friends, from work. Delayed help seeking, again, fear of being labeled or misunderstood, carrying that shame around. Internalizing stigma can have deep feelings of guilt or embarrassment. And I always say sometimes when we hear the same thing over and over again, we start to believe it. And that's where that shame comes in, or diminished self-worth. Label avoidance and denial. To escape stigma, people may reject diagnoses and think that, or if they go in for help, they may not be honest and share what's actually going on. Criminalization. Stigma contributes to punitive responses, especially in substance use, where individuals are arrested or incarcerated instead of getting help. Poor engagement, delivery, and outcomes in healthcare. And then also engagement in the criminal legal system. And again, being incarcerated instead of, or doing things that we wouldn't do if we weren't using. And then again, being incarcerated instead of being able to get treatment. So the ripple effects of stigma on the individual. Discrimination is an act of prejudice. It can include denying someone employment, housing, accommodation, or other services based on the knowledge that someone has a substance use. On the family, again, this family, it's very hard on the family. A lot of people don't understand why their family member is using. So the reluctance to access supportive resources or healthcare options is part of it. On treatment, reluctance to seek help, full disclosure of, again, being honest of what's going on with them. They can't treat you if they don't know exactly what's going on. On the recovery community, closed communities with anonymity, like the 12-step programs where they keep everything anonymous. That makes someone slower to recover self-confidence, worthiness, and esteem. And then on society, discrimination ignores the fact that substance use disorder can strike people of any age, gender, race, or ethnicity. The impact of stigma on safety and productivity. So increased accidents when workers hide symptoms, higher turnover, more absenteeism and presenteeism, lower morale and crew cohesion, because of course your coworkers are going to get mad when you're always late or you can't do the job that they're doing. Delayed treatment leading to longer recovery times. Again, not admitting that you truly have a problem. And then the financial impact on companies, workers' comp, retraining somebody because somebody is out, and or if they do not no longer have a job. Addiction-related stigma. It is a shame-based illness generated and perpetuated by prejudice, attitudes, beliefs against persons with addictive disorders, and persons with substance use disorder and people in recovery are shunned and deprived of basic human rights and health care. And this slide shows that most people, almost half of the people, 48%, believe that people mostly or entirely are responsible for their substance use, that it's a choice. So they are saying that it's their responsibility, and of course they're putting the blame on them when truly it is not. Who among us is likely to stigmatize and discriminate? All of us. We must recognize that good people can find themselves doing very bad things. Actually, convincing ourselves we would never do bad things to other people decreases our vigilance against such behaviors and increases the likelihood we will do so. So, again, remembering that all of us are likely to stigmatize. The role of leadership, foremen, and union stewards. So how foremen and supervisors carry the tone. The leaders set the tone. It starts from up at the top and comes down. So again, if leaders model respect and openness, workers feel safer speaking up. The importance of modeling non-stigmatizing language, encouraging early help seeking. If you see someone has a problem, go to them instead of making them feel shameful. Go up to them and encourage them to seek help if they truly have a problem. Creating a culture where safety includes mental health and substance use, and then union roles and advocacy and support. So leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about creating a culture where people can ask for help. Some of the stigmatizing language. So the Executive Office of the President in 2017 decided that it used to be called substance abuse. And so he did not like that term. So he made it substance use. Again, with the language, we're trying to change some of the language. So individuals with substance use disorder viewed more negatively than those with medical or psychiatric disorder. And then negative attitudes among health professionals have been found to adversely affect the quality of care and subsequent treatment outcomes. More is defining people by their disorder, and then referring to oneself only as an addict, addicted person, or an alcoholic. Sensationalizing recovery, making broader statements about the disorder. Again, saying the addict, the addicted, the alcoholic, or instead of saying suffers from, afflicted with, or victims of, and then substance related terms as metaphors. So here's some of the language. Instead of saying abuser or addict, saying a person with a substance use disorder. Instead of saying lapse or relapse, use morally neutral terms like resumed or experienced a recurrence of symptoms. Instead of drug, using a term such as medication or non-medically used substance. And then instead of clean or dirty, use proper medical terms for positive or negative results for substance use disorder. So practical tools for reducing stigma on the job. How do you talk to your coworker if you're worried about that? And what not to say. Having scripts for supportive conversations. You don't need to be a counselor to support someone. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, "Hey, I notice you don't seem like yourself lately." And then just let them speak. Let them see if they have something to say. How to respond if someone does disclose a problem. If you have an EAP or member services, being able to say, hey, there is somebody out there that you can talk to. How to challenge the stigmatizing language respectfully. If you hear stigmatizing language, you can redirect without confrontation. We don't talk about people like that here. And then peer support models that work well in the trade settings. And that is the next training that follows this. So you'll hear more about that. And then this is stigma in the media. And this I don't think is right. Again, the media is always about making things negative instead of the positive, instead of having Time Magazine with people that recover. There's a lot of people that we all know, the actors and actresses, and actresses that have long-term sobriety. There's Jamie Lee Curtis, and different people. I don't understand why we can't show that they are in recovery and put that on. But again, we all know how the media is. So this is the impact of stigma on individuals with substance use. It creates a unique psychological stressors for individuals with substance use or alcohol use disorder. These stressors affect emotional well-being, willingness to seek help, and overall life outcomes. It doesn't just hurt feelings, it directly affects mental health, functioning, and willingness to seek care. It increases stress, worsens symptoms, and creates real barriers to recovery. When we reduce stigma, we remove one of the biggest obstacles people face for getting well. So stigma is a roadblock to recovery. Myths and stereotypes about addiction. It is not a moral issue, or a spiritual deficit or a sin. It's not a character flaw, and it isn't a weakness or a lack of willpower. It is a disease. So understanding that, and we did do a training about that before, But understanding that substance use, we don't choose to become alcoholics or addicts or have a substance use disorder. It is a disease. And then the not in my backyard syndrome, that happens when people don't want recovery houses in their neighborhood. And that's not helping individuals that are trying to learn to live a new life and to be substance use free. So strategies for healing stigma. Educate yourself and others. The more informed you are about substance use disorders, the better you are to evaluate and resist inaccurate negative stereotypes. This information can also be passed on to others. Share it with others. Listen to individuals who have lived with these disorders, and persons with firsthand experience can clearly identify what they perceive as stigmatizing. They can best describe how stigma has affected them and how they would like to be viewed and treated. And then watch your language. I found this quote from Liz Schuler, the president of the AFL-CIO. Very appropriate. There is no place for stigma in our workplaces. Every worker deserves dignity, respect, and the chance to get help without fear. And that is so true. And that isn't just in the trades and unions, that is everywhere. So some of the national efforts in fighting stigma, there's National Recovery Month. That is every September. And internationally, across the world, people do different recovery events all through the month of September. There's all kinds of things to show people that, there are ways to have fun or ways to engage with other people without having to use. And it's always, like I said, it's always in September. Addiction Treatment and Recovery Caucus. That is in March of 2004. Patrick Kennedy created the Addiction Treatment and Recovery Caucus to educate lawmakers about the problems of addiction and the need to increase legislative support. There's Faces and Voices of Recovery. They are from out in St. Paul, Minnesota, and they've been around since 2001. The Young People in Recovery, they started in 2010, and I'm in Harrisburg, and there's a Young People's in Recovery in Lemoyne. And then there also is a Legal Action Center, and they work to reduce substance use disorder and the harm it causes to millions of individuals and their families and friends. Actionable ways to end stigma in the trades. Normalize the conversations, talk to other people about it, see what other people think. Train for supportive communication, have information for provide scripts or role play exercises, how to check in with a coworker if you're worried about them. A lot of people don't know what to say to somebody, so have that information or talk to other people about it. Having the peer support programs, again, that is this follow up to this training. And having visible leadership commitment. Again, it comes from the top. And when they see the supervisors and managers are concerned and caring, that goes down to the employees. Anonymous access to help. There's a 1-800 number that you can call, and you can have posted for individuals that need help with substance use. And again, also the EAP and member services. And then challenge cultural norms, address the tough it out mentality directly, reinforce that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness, and use humor and storytelling to shift attitudes without preaching. So what are our next steps? Our next steps are going on to the training. We're going to be talking about using peer supports in the trades.
Thank you, Nikki. Great job again. So
Thank you.
you nailed it both times. That was awesome. And as she mentioned, part two is coming in a minute or so. Just real quickly, just a quick commercial before we jump to part two here. So the fourth and final segment of this series is going to be held April 22nd, noon at Benoni in Mechanicsburg. That's noon, April 22nd. We're going to talk about all the great resources and all great ways that people can get help. Nikki and Pro-A will be joined by AFSP, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We're going to talk about a new training that they have. And they're also going to talk about the 2026 suicide prevention hike for hope. There was a few hikes happening in Pennsylvania to support the construction industry. In our area, it's going to be happening in Lebanon County at Memorial Lake State Park. So stay tuned, and I hope you can join us on April 22nd. And thanks again, Nikki, for part one. And we await part two, which starts right now. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
But maybe later this week.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Hello and welcome everyone to seminar 3 of 4 of Building a Strong Workforce. This is actually part 2 of the 3rd seminar. This is about peer support. And Nikki Weir from Pro-A is going to steer the ship during this segment of the presentation. So without further ado, the floor is yours, Nikki.
All right, thank you. So again, from the first section, we have the QR code for the individuals that are on Zoom. If you could scan the QR code, that is another pre-test, and that is for the peer supports. All right, Patty, go ahead. So we're going to talk about utilizing peer recovery supports as peer workers as supports at the job site itself. And again, I am Nikki Weir, and my executive director is William Stauffer, and Patty is the program director. Next. Guess I'll have to say next. We already talked about Pro-A and who we are. Next. So learning objectives in this. What is a peer recovery worker? Why peer recovery supports work in the trades industry, among other places. Roles and responsibilities, the integration, how to integrate them into the trades workplace, and then the benefits to the employers and the unions. Next. So peer-based recovery support, they're part of an emerging transformation of systems and services addressing substance use disorder. They're there to help individuals at the sites, at the different employment job sites when someone is struggling because they have the resources to know where to go to. They're an essential ingredient in developing a recovery-oriented system in which the treatment plays an important part. And then also provides a range of person-centered and strength-based supports for long-term recovery management. Next. So substance use disorders are currently understood to be a chronic condition that require long-term management, like diabetes. It's just like taking medicine. Our recovery is part of our medicine. This is for life. We don't go through treatment and do a 30-day program and then get a certificate and say that we graduated. This is for the rest of our lives. So peer supports help support people, giving them guidance in resources that are out there and walk beside them in their recovery journey. Next. This is a minute video on what is recovery capital. I'm not sure if it'll work through here. You want to try that, Patty? Oh,
it is not working.
It does not work. Okay, just
Nope,
go to the
not
next one. I'll just talk about it. So it was just going to say what recovery capital is. And again, more on recovery capital. It's the breadth and depth of internal and external resources that can be drawn upon to initiate and sustain recovery from severe alcohol problems. And recovery capital is conceptually linked to natural recovery, solution-focused therapy, strength-based. There are many ways, recovery paths. So this is supporting all of it. And it is also going from your wellness. And there's 3 types of recovery that can be influenced, and that is family, community, and recovery. Next. So what are peer supports? They encompass a range of interactions between people who shared similar experiences. Someone with a substance use disorder problem might feel more comfortable coming and talking to me since I say that I'm in recovery than someone that isn't in recovery or hasn't said out loud that they are in recovery. Again, they're actually a good listener. We talked before about the stigma and all the shame that those individuals that we carry. So it's being able to sit there and listening and sharing our own lived experience, me being able to say, hey, I've been through that before. Because a lot of people have a substance use disorder think they're the only ones that are going through what they're going through. So they would say, you would use too if you went through what I went. And that's not true. When we start sharing our stories, then other people hear, wow, so-and-so went through the same thing that I did. And then it makes it a little less shameful because you realize other people have been through those things. Giving them self-empowerment. So types of support offered by peers. Nope, you're good, Patty. Are emotional, which is empathy and concern. Like I said, listening. Informational, connects them to information and referrals to the community. So as a peer, I am a certified peer recovery specialist. I have resources all over Pennsylvania for individuals that are trying to get clean and sober or that are early in recovery to help them to stay clean and sober. There are so many things out there that people don't realize that are out there for them that are free to help them go through this process. Instrumental, concrete supports such as housing or employment. And again, knowing that helping someone find employment because a lot of people early in recovery don't have jobs anymore. Or then affiliation support, connections to recovery, community supports, activities and events. There are so many different events going on all the time for people that are clean and sober. And it's, again, just having someone to show you, hey, where do I find these events? And again, the different recovery pathways. There's 12-step recovery, there's celebrate recovery, there's a whole bunch of different recovery pathways. Next, Patty. And as we said before, with the trades industry, they have one of the highest substance use rates. And again, because of people getting hurt, trade workers have a higher rate of alcohol and drug use compared to other employers. And then work environments, the stress, the physical demands, long hours, working out in the cold, working out in the heat. Next. So some of the possible barriers, we already talked about it, the stigma, how people perceive us, how we perceive ourselves, trusting somebody, a lot of people don't trust people when they're early in recovery because a lot of the people that we thought were our so-called friends when we were out there using really were not our friends. They wanted something from us, we wanted something from them. So to be able to have like a real relationship with somebody and trusting people is a big thing. Buy-in from all levels, fear of being ostracized and not congruent with organizational culture. Again, what other people think. Next. So why peer recovery works in the trades industry, again, can help alleviate the barriers. Having that individual that sort of has that title so that people know that they're there, that if somebody is struggling, they know who they can go to and they know who has that wealth of information. It's about getting down into the mud when the men who are in those boots grappling with the addiction and mental health and can serve as a bridge to professional help because those peer supports can also help individuals get into treatment. Next. The value of peer workers, the benefits of peer workers, again, knowing that someone has gone through the same thing that you have makes a big difference to people. When we feel like we're alone, we tend to isolate. Increased empowerment, making them feel better about themselves, helping them find their self-worth. Increased social functioning, getting them out there into the community and showing them the things that are going on. Increased engagement in recovery, talking to them about their treatment, talking about to them if they're in an outpatient treatment. Increased community engagement, again, getting them out there because a lot of people, when they're using substances when they're out in the community too, not just at work. It's like everywhere. So doing something clean and sober is totally different than doing something when you're half high. And then increase quality of life and life satisfaction, and helping them realize that life is going to be better by not using substances. Next. Benefits, again, decrease self-stigma, not worrying about what other people think about us. That was a huge one for me, because I always worried what everyone thought, and now not worrying what other people think because I know who I am and what I am. Decrease hospitalization, and then again, saves money, and then decrease costs to the community. Like we said, with the healthcare and employers, people get jobs, they stay at jobs, they show up for their jobs. Next. Sharing our stories in the workplace, people talking, being open about it. I don't hide that I'm in recovery, because I feel like, even just getting on Facebook and saying, hey, I had 4 years, 5 years as I was getting time, even now, I still share. And I've had people reach out to me, like private message me and say, hey, my, brother needs help. Can you help him? If we don't talk about it, people are not going to get help. So my mom, and I talked about the older generation, my mom was one of those that always said, we can't tell anybody this, we sort of have to keep it a secret. And then I was like, no, I want to tell people, like, I'm not ashamed of it, because I know who I am now. And that's just part of my story. Having members assistance programs, having that members assistance or EAP at the work places, to have like the call if somebody feels they just need to even talk to somebody, like that's a counselor and it's private and confidential, having that program. And then supportive coworkers, or supporting your coworkers if you know that someone's struggling, and then decreasing the stigma. Next. The roles appear, they're mentors, they're educators, they're coaches, supporters. They are like a little bit of everything, and resource brokers. Resource brokers is the biggest one. Like I said, when we're certified recovery specialists, we find all the resources that are out there, to help individuals succeed. So that is one of the biggest benefits. And for the program now, with what we had said is, until companies get this acclimated into their business, if they decide to, we are here to help to do that. And we're also here to help if someone comes to one of you guys and says, hey, I need help. John and Kara have our number, and they can reach out and say, hey, I have somebody, can you help? And we'll gladly help get them into treatment or help them with whatever they need. Next. So decreasing the barriers, educating, just like we said, we're doing today. Building trust with authenticity, being honest and like sincere, and really meaning what you're doing, and saying, especially for employers, saying that, hey, if anybody here, when you sit in a room full of people, and saying, if anybody here has a problem and you need help, and someone really does come to you and say, I need help, and you say, we're going to save your job, seriously saving their job, because I know people who have gotten out of treatment and went back to work, and they've put them on like leave, and eventually they've ended up being terminated. So being honest in what you say, creating a safe space for people to come and say, like, I have a problem. And buy-in from all levels. Like I said, it comes with like the top and sort of trickles down. But even coworkers, to have that buy-in. Ensure confidentiality and empowerment versus shared information and penalties, sort of just what I said. And the EAP and member specialists or services, they are great because everything that you tell them or talk to them about is confidential. And then review policies and procedures to decide how you want to move forward with this. So the integration of peer workers in the trades workplace, this is a quote made by William White. And he wrote the book Slaying the Dragons, and it was on the treatment and recovery history. So he says the integration of peer support, recovery support services within addiction treatment programs is a clinically and cost-effective strategy of extending models of acute biopsychosocial stabilization to models of sustained recovery management that address the support needs of individuals and families across the multiple stages of recovery. Such services hold great promise in shortening addiction careers. and enhancing treatment engagement and retention, and enhancing long-term recovery outcomes via post-treatment monitoring, stage-appropriate recovery education and support, and if and when needed, early re-intervention. And that is where peer support specialists came from, because again, you go through treatment and then you may go to like an IOP and that ends, and recovery doesn't end. So people like me that are CRSs can stay engaged with that person long-term, and be able to give them support and help them go along the path. Next. So first thing is to create a plan. Think of how, what you want to do, if you want to do it, as far as having a peer support in the workplace. Recruit and place volunteers, I was thinking about that today, or last night. I was like reviewing this and I was thinking about that, and I thought, how would you like recruit or place? But I thought, you could like do like a anonymous box and say that you're looking for somebody to do like have like a peer support on site. And, is there anyone that's in recovery? Because not everybody is fully sharing, hey, I'm in recovery, and then you could have like a volunteer to be that peer support specialist or person. You can have somebody that isn't in recovery, but I feel like people that need that assistance totally relate to someone better if they are. I've gone into halfway houses with men dressed like this, and they're in a halfway house, which is still like a locked-in program, and getting treatment. And I've gone in to like do a spiel because I used to help individuals find employment. And you can see like the looks on their faces, like, who's this girl coming in here to talk? And I sit there and I would say, I'm a recovery employment coordinator. And then I would say, and I'm also a CRS. And if anyone else doesn't know what that means I'm in recovery too. You could automatically see their shoulders drop, because again, everyone in that room has something in common. And I think it then breaks that barrier and makes them feel more comfortable to come to you and to, utilize it. And then evaluate your process as it goes. And again, we're here, Pro-A is here to help in any way that we can, to guide you, to assist, to even just be here for if somebody needs help, and someone needs someone to talk to. Next. And then review peer worker roles and services with your organization. And you would have to let everybody know, because who's going to utilize it if they don't know it's there? Do we believe that we have individuals that could benefit from the peer worker? You would have to decide that. You guys are in that field where, like we said, that's one of the highest rates of substance use. So the likelihood of someone utilizing them, I would think it would be pretty high. The cost benefit projections, I know people get help and then they started coming to work and they start being a productive employee. I think that would be high. And then do the organization's policies and procedures support a peer specialist? Next. So final thoughts. Handling workplace stress. And this is for anybody. Tell your supervisor how you feel, or the supervisors tell their other management how they feel. Reduce job stress by taking care of yourself. The most important thing, and it doesn't matter whether you have a substance use disorder or not, is self-care. Us ourselves taking care of ourselves. The world is so crazy and busy right now, and a lot of times we're so busy doing all these things for everybody else that we forget about taking care of ourselves. That is so huge, taking that time for ourselves. Engage in regular exercise, and that it is very much a stress reliever. Realize that your job may not be the best option for your personality. That is one of the things that we had when we were working with individuals in recovery. One of the reasons we received the grant is statistics show that you're more likely to stay in long-term recovery if not only do you work your recovery, so you have to work on your recovery, but that you also work at a job that you like to go to. No one wants to go to a job where every day they think, oh my gosh, I can't stand this job, but I need the paycheck. And sometimes people are like, well, I make really good money, and I know if I go do what I really want to do, the money's not going to be as good. But you got to like weigh the pros and cons, because the money might not be as good, but we sort of adjust to our salaries And again, the peace of mind, knowing that you like going to work every day is a huge thing. And then again, make sure you seek medical attention if you begin to experience frequent headaches, inability to sleep, or upset stomach or short temper. Next. And that is it. Does anyone have any questions? And I do have a post test, John.
So when it comes to peer support, and companies, encourages peer groups, do you have any best practices? Because it seemed like a year ago that was kind of, I don't know, trend for everywhere, but it seemed like I heard a lot of companies talking about it. Do you have any sort of like best practices or lessons learned? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Patty might chime into this, but I honestly don't know any companies that have the peer support built into it. I think this is going to be, yeah, exactly. And I think this is going to be like a new concept because most of the peers that I know are like with the treatment facilities and or out that's where we get most of our referrals from people coming out of treatment, coming or people in outpatient facilities, things like that. So to actually have a peer support, I think it would be incredible to know that, like, I mean, we talked before about the EAP and having like the member services, whatever you guys call it. And then being able to also add to that we have like a peer support on site. And it wouldn't be anybody that, I mean, it would be like a regular worker. So they're not specifically just doing that, but say somebody came into your office and said something and it's the guy's name's Joe, you would know you'd be able to get a hold of Joe and Joe would come in and meet with this person, you know?
I have a comment about that because I ran the state, police internal peer support program for 12 years before I retired, and I can tell you that if you black and white people based on they want to do something, not because they have any experience, it'd be great if they did have at least one or two people in recovery, but that's not the basis of what you select somebody. You base it on the personality, you base it whether they can keep things confidential. You base it on a certain set of criteria. I can tell you, if it's run the right way, it can be hugely effective in impacting somebody's life. And we were pretty successful. And really being able to be a conduit for treatment for substance use, mental health, and anything. The biggest issues that usually encompass peer support is job and family issues, right? So, and you want somebody to vent to. Sometimes the psychologist that trained us said most people want their say, not necessarily their way. So if they want a divorce, sometimes it's just vent. If they want to, they're angry at their supervisor, they just want to vent. But then the problems can be more serious, like substance use. Hey, I need help right away. And usually when someone comes for help, usually one or two things or both are in jeopardy. The relationship issue with their family or their spouse and or their job. So if we get it run the right way, you promote it the right way, it can be a great program to add to your organization. And I'd love to help you because I still do work in peer support in law enforcement and beyond.
That's awesome. If I could interject really quick, I just want to share, John, I couldn't hear all of what you were saying, but I heard a lot of it. And I know of two, and I don't want to say unions because there were job sites that had union representatives working there. So I'm not sure if it was through the union, what I'm going to say, or if it was through the employer. But the employers at each job site, the two that I know of, they had safety committees. And on that safety committee, somehow each of them had someone who had association with recovery, substance use disorder, family issues, or mental health. And that person was like the point person that people would go to. And they didn't necessarily share all of that. But they'd listen, if you have any issues, here's our safety committee, here are the names on the list. And then eventually that person would get connected with the individual who had recovery experience. So worked out pretty well, but it was not through an EAP, but like you said, the conduit, it might be that first step where somebody says, listen, I'm really struggling. no matter in what area it might be, because that affects safety and mental health, wellness, all of that is incorporated into safety. So I love those ideas. And John, thanks for all you do. Didn't realize you were still part of that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
My battery was dying when I asked my question. Hopefully, Nikki's battery is still green, so I should have charged it. Things falling apart today. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And it did come, the question did come, started, probably you could trace it back to like 2020 COVID times, and it started some of the unions and trades talking, and helping each other peer support. And then through that, kind of internally within companies, like different trades get together, different trades talk. And now, like people like Chris Lallavie, Chris talks to construction companies beyond his state, beyond New Jersey. He talks to other companies about setting up peer support.
Wow, that would be awesome.
It seemed like late last year to this year.
Mhm.
It's still.
So I think it's just no meeting, he does like once a month or something. And I don't know, I could get more information if anyone wants, but I think it's like a national peer support group for construction workers that you can just join and have like a peer support time with others.
Usually, but it's what works is what talking to people that you know,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And that you have a trust in them. So, and one of the things before we even, hey, people might be nice, but they have to be as smart to be a peer. You can't just, because people come to you for many different problems and issues. So you just can't go, wow, sorry for your luck. We got to make sure that we can hopefully be that conduit for a referral. It's like, most of the times it's just listening, but also knowing when to refer and who to refer to. So there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of training that goes into it. And but it's nice that like an EAP or peer referral is like in a couple of states away. But I'm going to go to somebody I know who's a peer, right? Internally in this organization, that I'm going to be able to talk and go, hey, John, I'm having this problem with at home that I'm not getting along with my wife, and it's really causing me stress and not getting any sleep and turning to alcohol.
Thank you. Any other questions online? I think Nikki's gonna. Did you tell about the QR code?
Oh, maybe I didn't. Yes. Oh, so for those of you that are online, I'm assuming you already know the QR code is there for the post test. And that is for the peer support. And if you are not able to get it, I will send you an email and give you the links. Again, we greatly appreciate it. And everybody here has them printed out. So thank you very much for allowing us to do this. I appreciate everybody that attended.
And then to wrap it up, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but to wrap it up, session 4 of 4 will be, I believe, April 22nd. I don't have my notes in front of me, but I believe it's April 22nd back at Pannoni Engineering, in Mechanicsburg. We'll send the address and all the good stuff, and we're going to try and piece this video together. We're going to see what happens here. So no guarantees. See if we can make some artwork out of this. So, but thank you for joining us online. You guys are awesome. And like I said, the 4th one comes up. It's the grand finale. And in that one, Pro-A and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention are going to come to that. And we're going to talk about this year's 2026 Hike for Hope. So stay tuned for more info, register, and thanks again to Houck for hosting us. And the food was awesome. You people online missed out on some good food. So yes, Mission Barbecue. Enjoy your day, everyone. See ya.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, John. Thanks, Emily and Kara. Bye.